and welcome to another Spectrum Geeks video. My name is Dale, and in this video we're checking out this. It's the Bluetti EB55 and asking the question, is this a better power pack to get than maybe something like the Charing Explorer 500 that I reviewed in a previous video? Let's do this. So thanks for tuning in to this video. So full disclosure up front, Bluetti did send me the EB55 to review free of charge, but it is not sponsored and they don't get to see any of this content before it goes live on the channel. So it is still a full unbiased video, but just full disclosure for that. And there will be some links down in the description, both to the Bluetti's page so you can see more information about the product itself and if you want to buy it from there, as well as my usual Amazon affiliate links if you decide to pick one of these up yourself. Now, I've been using various types of these batteries over the years. Most recently was a couple of years ago where I had the Charing Explorer 500, which I still use to this day in my Hero camper, but this is a very good alternative from Bluetti. Same price bracket, very similar functionality. So for me, I'm kind of comparing the two in my mind as I talk about in this review. I've been using the product for about a week, so I've got a good idea of kind of what I like about it, what I don't like about it, which I'm going to share with you today. So we're going to talk about the unboxing experience, what's in the box, what the specs are, some of the ports and availability, and then we will test it out, running a few other things to show you kind of how it's working in practice and kind of what limits you can push it to hopefully allow you to make a more informed purchasing decision. That's always the idea on the channel. So if you do like these videos, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't done already, and press the notification bell. But let's talk about now kind of what it comes like boxed, what you get in the box, and then we'll talk about the device itself, its capacity, and kind of some of its functionality. Okay, so this is the box that the Bluetti will come in. It's a pretty decent unboxing experience, nothing kind of too flashy. They've really focused more on the product itself, and then we get a couple of cables with the device, which obviously you would expect, but there are some bonus bits in there in my opinion. So you do get the Bluetti AC charger. So obviously here in the UK we use a 3-pin plug, nice little power block that has a red and green indicator light. Well, it's one LED indicator which goes obviously red when charging and then green when fully charged. But we also get a couple of other adapters in there as well to enable us to do charging from different sources, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But it's, at least in my experience, uncommon to get all of the adapter leads with it as standard. Normally you have to buy those as accessories, so that is really, really good. And again, these are available worldwide, but obviously my version is the UK 3-pin plug specific one. Okay, so if we do start off with the specs then, so very similar to other ones in this price bracket. Recommended retail price is around £630 here in the UK, but obviously there may often be sales on both the Bluetti store as well as Amazon, etc. It's got a 537 watt hour battery inside here, so 22.4 volts, about 24 amp hours, and it has an inbuilt 700 watt AC pure sine wave inverter. Now the pure sine wave bit is really important, especially if you're running expensive products like this from laptops, etc. You want a pure sine wave inverter so it's not going to damage your electrical devices, and it will support surging up to 1400 watts for just a few seconds, and we will check that out later, just for how long can we overrun it from the 700 watts that the inverter is kind of able to do continuously. So already 700 watts is pretty good for this size of form factor. Normally they're around 500 watts, so we're off to a good start there. It is relatively weighty. Obviously at the end of the day this is a honking battery that you're lugging around, so it is 7.5 kilograms, which is about 16.5 pounds, but it does have this handy kind of pop-up carry handle, which makes carrying it a lot more effortless, and it does fold away then for kind of when you're using it. And something that's actually quite nice about this one, you fold the battery, the handle away, and we do have a charging dock on the top. So again, if you have something like an iPhone, you can pop this on top and it will charge. Obviously it has to have the power enabled on for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit longer. In terms of the battery in here, so it's a Li-Fi PO4 battery, so lithium iron phosphate, so around 2,500 plus cycles, and it will still retain around 80% of its charging or powering capability. They do recommend, obviously, if you're not using this all the time, we are coming up to kind of camping a holiday season, perhaps you're considering something for a camper or a van build out, they do recommend that you kind of make sure it's charged up to around 80% every 3 to 6 months if you're not using it, to kind of help maintain the health of the battery. And all of the Bluetti products come with a 2-year warranty. So again, a bit of extra peace of mind about obviously the battery and the inverter, and obviously if any of the sockets or anything have any issues. In terms of the inputs, another one of the things that I do quite like about this, obviously not all of the covers have the dust protectors, but the inputs here and the 12-volt cigarette adapter both have dust covers on. It's not an IP rated product, so it's not waterproof or water resistant or anything like that, so you don't want to use it outside, but it is quite nice that these input covers are kind of protected and covered on there. And another nice feature about the Bluetti EB55 is that it can basically support dual charging. So what I mean by that is you can have 2 forms of power input to enable a maximum of 400 watts charging optimal into this device, which obviously will enable it to charge a lot faster. So for example, this supports up to 200 watts from a solar panel, and then obviously 200 watts from the AC power. So you could be charging from full-on solar and AC power and have this thing fully charged much faster. And we'll talk about kind of charging speeds in a moment. So in terms of charging it, as mentioned, charge it with the AC charging up here, which is a DC 7909 fixture, which is quite common. Again, that comes in the box. But then what I quite like about it as well, you do have this XT60 for DC charging. So AC and DC charging on there, which works really well, and it does have an MPPT solar controller on board as well. So if you're not familiar with that, that means as you're going to get overcast clouds and things, which is very common here in the UK, you're going to maximise and get the best charging from your solar panel as well. I don't have a Bluetti solar panel available, and it actually hasn't been very sunny for the last few weeks here in the UK, definitely not during the time that I've had this, but we will see if my Jackery solar panel can plug into this and show you at least it doing some form of something on the solars if the clouds clear up for long enough. So in terms of dimensions of the device, because that might be important, especially if you're doing it in a van conversion or something, you want to be careful about where you're going to mount it, store it, or even packing it up for travelling. It's 27.8 centimetres long. It is 20 centimetres, I guess, in width or height, and 19.8 centimetres front to back in terms of the depth. And in terms of the environments you can use it in, it supports minus 20 degrees up to 40 degrees centigrade, and in terms of storage, minus 10 to minus 45 degrees centigrade. So typically over the winter you want to store this kind of thing in the house, but if you're out using it whilst camping, it's running, obviously it's generating some heat, which means the battery is not under too much pressure down to the minus 20. As mentioned in the box, you do get a few things. This is the Bluetti charging box. It is a little bit noisy because there is a fan in there to keep things cool when it is doing the charging. Again, up to 200 watts charging power with the power bank for charging. Again, 3-pin AC adapter. And as mentioned, one of the selling points of this is multiple kind of configurations for charging. So in there you also get the solar charging cable. So these are MC4 to XT60, which is obviously a female one on there. So if you have, most solar panels will have an MC4 adapter, or again you can get it straight into that DC one if you've just got the round one like the Goal Zero I mentioned earlier. Also get a nice little Velcro strap that you can kind of Velcro all the cables together so they don't go flying around wherever you're storing them. And then we have the cigarette adapter one again, so that's what you usually have in your car, again to the female XT60 adapter. So great that you get this in the box. I mean, you don't have to go scrab around trying to buy extra things. You're pretty much good to go for your trip and all your charging options. Again, the only real cable option is an extender or a duplicator, so you can have multiple of the AC chargings happening, but I don't think you're going to need it. Okay then, so if we do look at the types of ports that can power things, we'll go through those. So again, this will vary slightly based on your region, but here in the UK we have a few different things. So first of all, something that I really like and just shows that this is a modern product is the PD Type C charging port. So 100 watts charging port on there, so perfect for something like a MacBook Pro or something else, a high powered laptop that uses USB-C for power. And then we have 4 5 volt 3 amp USB-A ports. So again, it's very common for charging most of your USB ports, USB devices via those ports, so not a problem at all. And then over here, something that I've never actually had a use for, but I guess somebody does because they tend to turn up all the time. We have 2 DC 12 volt 10 amp ports, and they are the DC 5521 ports, I think they are. If you do use those ports or something, please leave a note down in the comments. I'd be fascinated to know what you use them for. And then we have the rather common, I don't know what the official term for it is, I call it the cigarette lighter one, which is 12 volts and 10 amp again. And then the thing that you're probably going to most use it for, if you're using the onboard inverter functions for things like kettles or maybe a low powered hairdryer, are the 2 AC 3-pin outlets as well. And as we mentioned already, we have the wireless conductivity pad as well, for whether it be a tablet or a phone or something that can utilize that. And the great thing about the product is obviously you can be using all of these at once as long as you don't drain more than 700 watts from the device at any one time. So you can have multiple things plugged in, USB, 3-pin, DC, etc., and you're not going to have a problem. Each things are powered somewhat independently. So we have on and off switch here for the DC outputs. We have an on and off switch here for the AC outputs, and then an on and off switch here for the DC USB outputs, which also controls the powering for the 15 watt, I don't know what you call it, is it capacity sensing charging pad here on the top. So again, lots of different options there. And in terms of the charge time, as I mentioned earlier, you've got multiple ways of charging it. If you're charging this from flat, from the AC charger, so that's 200 watts, typically it's going to take you about 3 hours to fully charge this from flat with the 200 watts charging option. If you're charging it in your car, so with the cigarette adapter, it's typically going to be, again, it's typically 12 volts, probably about 3.5 hours to 6 hours, depending on your options. Obviously 12 volts or 24 volts are supported. And then if you do have a dual charging adapter, so that is something that is sold separately, you can charge this up in as little as just over 1.5 hours as well. Or again, as if you were in a optimal sunny climate with AC charging and the solar, again, you probably get it down to around the 2 hour marks as well. And as I kind of mentioned in there, you already get the charging adapters both for the DC 7709 adapter for the cigarettes and what have you, as well as some is it MPT4 connectors for connecting up to a standard solar array that doesn't have that special DC 7709 charging adapter like I've wired in for my Jackery Solar Saga, and it's quite common with the Gold, is it Gold Power or Go Power, you know, that very popular US brand of battery banks. The other thing I did forget to mention, on the back of this there is a light as well, and it basically has 3 modes. So we just press once and it's on a certain brightness, press it again, gets a little bit brighter, and then thirdly it has an SOS function as well. So again, great for lighting around your campsite, and obviously if if you were lugging this around and you were in danger, obviously be able to do SOS calls is quite good as well. As we look around it, not really too much to say. There are fans on one side, and I think that's an outlet hole on the other to enable obviously heat dissipation when it's doing its business. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand kind of the specs of the Bluetti EB55. Now we're going to go around and we're going to plug in various different things to see how does it perform. The aim here isn't to kind of super stress the device. It's not designed to run something that requires 2 kilowatts. Remember, this is a 700 watt kind of continuous output power pack. So we're going to try and stick within the realms of that, but try it out on a few various things that you might look to use it with, you know, on a camping trip or around the home. So we're going to plug in laptops, plug in GoPros, charge phones, plug in a lamp, you know, try charging an electric bike, electric scooter, maybe try a couple of power tools that we have access to, try a kettle, a little mini heater, a few things, just give you a rough idea of how things perform, and then we'll wrap up with my final thoughts on the battery. We'll also try and see, again, as I mentioned earlier, if the solar is out, check if the solar panel is working well with this. One thing that is good about the solar panels, that well, for this particular device, it supports solar panels that can go from 12 volts up to 28 volts. That's the open current voltage, so just check that on whatever solar panel that you use. And Bluetti have both 200 watt and 120 watt solar panels specifically designed to be connected to this device. So this, the Solar Saga one I'm using is 100 watts. So it'll be interesting to see, again, depending on the sun, what kind of solar input we get from that. But let's crack on. There is no app, you know, for this device, so you can't check and see anything on the app. It's actually all on the screen that you're going to see and interface with. I don't think you need that, but that is a question that people asked me before with the Jackery one. So let's go wander around, find some things. I'm going to make sure that you can see me using the product, or at least powering it on, and then make sure that I can zoom in on the screen so you can see kind of how the device is performing as we go through the different modes, what happens on the screen, and, you know, just how far we can push it. Okay, so I've moved the cameras around a little bit, and the Bluetti EB55 is just here. You should be able to see the screen illuminated here, and we will zoom in as we plug different products in, but I want to make sure that you can see everything that is happening. So first thing we're going to try is I have my iPhone 14. I'm going to do 2 little tests with this. One, trying with a wireless charger on the top here, and then plugging it directly in to the USB charging, and see how things differ. To activate the top wireless charger, you have to turn on the DC output area here, which you do just by pressing and holding the button, and then let go and it goes green. And then if we put this on the top here, you can hear it start to charge. It's already at 97%, so it shouldn't be probably pulling a load from the battery. Again, this can charge up to 15 watts of power just there. Okay, so we're seeing 10 watts being pulled by the phone out of a maximum of 15 watts that can be discharged to that. We will plug in a USB multi-lead that I have here, and we will do a comparison of what happens if we charge it off the USB lead. Let's wait for that to go to 0, which it has. Okay. Now again, we're charging off the lead. You can just press any of these buttons just to get the screen to display it again. We're seeing that around 3 or 4 watts. But again, this is a multi-lead, so not necessarily the ideal one for testing. Just want to give you a rough idea of what that looked like. So also I have an old iPhone 6 that I still use, so we'll try plugging that in as well. This is fully discharged, so we can see that's actually pulling a little bit more there, 8 watts. Okay, and then we could also try something like this, my GoPro. I think it's an 8 or a 9, I can't quite remember what one it is now. And that is USB-C, which we can plug in just like that. You should see the red light come on shortly. think this was fully depleted. There we go, it wasn't in properly. I'm showing 1 watt going out there at the moment. Let me just try a separate lead. Sometimes I found the GoPro can be a little bit fussy with what leads you're connecting to it. So let's try this one. Oh, yeah, red light is now on. I'm seeing that discharging at 3 watts. I'm going to try, obviously it's with directly USB-C to USB-C, because obviously that's 100 watts of output. I'm not sure, I think this battery is probably pretty flat in here. Yeah, I've just seen that this is actually completely flat, so we're seeing 3 watts being discharged from there at the moment. Let's plug this in to the USB-C directly. See if that changes from the 3 watts that we're getting just there. Okay. So again, that USB-C can discharge at 100 watts, so we will plug in a MacBook Pro to that in a moment. You know, we're seeing a better output. Obviously, this is limited to what the GoPro or any of these devices can take in from it. So we will go and grab my MacBook Pro, plug this in and see how that does for charging and powering from the EB55. Okay, so here we have my MacBook Pro, and we're just going to plug that in from the USB-C. So typically when I'm traveling, I don't tend to take the power plug. I think it's about an 85 watt power plug. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of power discharge we get from this. I think the battery has a reasonable amount of charge in it. Let's just pop that on. 24 watts, 35 watts, 44 watts, 24 watts. Yes, I think it's relatively high charge, but you can see there it's definitely doing what it needs to do. Let me just open it up. Yeah, so obviously with it in use, we can see that's drawing 34 to 45 watts. So again, no issue charging and running a MacBook Pro directly from this as well. So USB side of things, I think, you know, we tried a couple of things, no issues, no problems. Now we will try a couple of things that use the inverter that I would typically use if I was traveling. One thing that you will see, this is another thing I really like about the Bluetti, is there is room underneath here in the UK, so when you plug a plug in, the cable will fit. That was one of the issues I didn't like about the Jackery. These plugs were kind of pretty much right at the bottom and there was no room for flex at the bottom. So we'll try a lamp, charging one of my Ryobi batteries, as well as a hairdryer, because if like me, hairdryers are important. Okay, so first up we're going to try this lamp. So again, we can plug this in. As I mentioned there, no issue with the plug cable, it just sits in there nice and neatly. Obviously, with the inverter being activated for AC, there will be increased noise and you'll hear the inverter fan kick in, so don't be surprised by that. How much the fan is being used, I think, is going to impact based on the draw. So we turn the inverter on, and on comes the light. So this is a low energy hue bulb, I think, so 5 watts, and it's working absolutely fine. You can see actually, because it's such a low draw, no sound from the inverter whatsoever. Obviously, if you're not familiar with these type of devices, don't leave the inverter on when you've not got anything plugged in, because obviously it will drain the battery a little bit, because the inverter is always drawing a small amount of power. So that's the lamp. Let's try the Ryobi battery now. Okay, so I only have my slow charger with me here. We can plug this in. Again, I can't imagine it's going to draw much. But it's a 5 amp hour battery with the slow charger. And again, just drawing 8 watts without a problem. What we do is we'll leave this plugged in, and now we'll try out the hairdryer, just so you can demonstrate, obviously with multiple devices in, how it works. Now the hairdryer I have here is one that I used before in my Jackery test. It is a 1200 watt hairdryer with 2 modes, so I expect this to work in the first mode, because it's around 500, 600 watts. So it should be more than capable. And we should be able to very briefly flick it on to the full 1200 watts and then off again, as it can surge to 1400, but then I'll demonstrate that it will very quickly kill the power. So let's just plug this in and make sure you can see on the screen what's happening. So we're getting about 9 watts of draw to the Ryobi charger. And we'll just keep pressing this so you can see it. And else it's going to get noisy because it's a hairdryer. Okay, so you can see without any issue, 520 odd watts, no problem. I'll briefly flick it up to 1200 watts. We should see that on the display. I'll quickly then come back down, and then I will go back until it cuts the power to the inverter off. The switch is a bit dodgy, that's all. Okay, so now I will make it so it cuts itself out. Okay, and if you can hear that noise now, that is the sound of the fan. Obviously now the inverter's been put under a bit of pressure using the hairdryer, and it's turned everything off. So obviously to just turn that on again, just press and hold the button there. There we go, it goes green. Again, back to working without any issue. I've tried this on a few things that are definitely over 1400 watts just to see how quickly the cutout protects itself. And in most cases, as soon as it surges above that 1400, it's instantaneous. And you can hear there, now it's back to just charging the battery. The inverter load is very minimal, doesn't need to keep any cooling, so the fan has turned off. So what we're trying now is, we're trying the Nespresso machine. I'm not sure that's going to work. I think it has a bit too much draw, but we will then pop outside, try a couple of the mini heaters that I use when I'm camping, see if we can maybe charge an electric scooter or electric bike if it's not absolutely lashing it down rain. And I might see if we can drag this into the workshop, just see if we can use a saw or something on there, just to show how versatile these kind of devices are. Okay, so hopefully you can see the screen from there. I'm going to try my wife's Nespresso machine. I don't really understand how it works. If I break it, it wasn't me. So we'll pop this in. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to work, because like a kettle would be like 2.5, 3 kilowatts and that. I'm not sure how well these ones work, but let's turn things on. That's plugged in. Put that forward. Got the cup in there. No. Straight away, it just killed the power. So you can't power an espresso with the EB55. It's just like a kettle, it's not going to work. Okay, so please excuse the noise. I've come out to where I store the Hero camper. I'm going to try a couple of these little electric heaters. These are the things that I use in the camper, and I have used them with my other battery power bank storage devices. So this one is a 250 watt heater, and this one is a 500 watt heater. So we're not expecting them both to work when they're on together, but we'll just demonstrate this one here. 250 watts. Wait for it to come on. Probably can't see too well, there's a little red light. I'll try and do an overlay. It peaks at around 500, then settles down to around the kind of 250, 260 mark. We'll see on here. Now we'll unplug that and we will turn on the 500 watt one. Okay, that's peaking up to 934, and that did kick this out. Okay, so this one is obviously surging over the 1400 and we're not seeing it working. We can probably turn down the temperature a little bit on the side here if you want to try and adjust it, but I think this one's pushing it a little bit too far. I think the problem with electric heaters is the initial power burst is higher than the 1400 this can support. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky for me to film in here where you can see everything, but here I have my Super 73 ZX and I've got things plugged in, so I'm going to just move the camera and we're going to demonstrate if you can charge the battery of a Super 73 whilst you're away, because you know, you could be away camping, you've taken your Bluetti with you and also electric bike, and perhaps you just need to charge it because you're running a bit low. So let's try that out. Okay, the green light's on. It's going 95 watts. 3 watts there, so well within capacity. So what I'll probably do now is I've got my Xiaomi N1 electric scooter behind. We'll get that plugged in, and we can probably charge our electric bike and our electric scooter at the same time. Okay, electric scooter is plugged in. See there, 153 watts, 152 watts. So charging your electric scooter and your electric bike at the same time is not a problem with the Bluetti EB55. Okay, so welcome to my incredibly messy workshop. Still haven't had time to sort it out since moving. I've got this plugged into the chop saw. Now it's 2000 watts, so I don't expect this to work. I'm just interested to show you kind of what would happen if you try and overload it again quite substantially. So again, we're not expecting it to work. Well, I will have two cameras going so that you can see what happens on the screen, but just want to have to you observe what's happening. So powered on, let's go. Working. I didn't expect that. I expected that the initial surge to get it going would be too much. I will try chopping into something, see if that makes any difference. Okay, now that time it has come up with a short. So that's interesting to see a different error message. Let me just reset it and we can try again. Okay, all reset. Works. I'm really impressed. It was kind of going up to nearly 800 watts then as I was doing the cutting, but yeah, so it succeeded itself. Okay, so now we're back inside. The last thing I wanted to show you is what it looks like when it is being charged. So yeah, we've depleted things to roughly 60%. I'm going to plug in the AC charging cable just now. I do have the DC input from the cigarette adapter also plugged in because I'm going to try and show you how it works when you charge from two sources at the same time. So just plug this one in. You should see about 200 watts. Yep, so we're seeing input 203 watts showing up here on the screen, and if I plug this in, hopefully, to a 12 volt source, we should see more powerful charging occurring. So I'm seeing 100 watts come out here. Yeah, so 310 watts going in. So it just shows you if you do decide to charge this from multiple power sources, you obviously have the ability to charge things up much faster. So unlimited here, got out 98 watts from the DC output. But again, if you had a 200 watt solar panel and it was working ideally, well, ideal conditions, you could charge up to 400 watts with the Bluetti EB55. Okay, so I hope this review has helped you. Obviously it has been quite in-depth and quite detailed, but we've shown you a few different use cases of the Bluetti EB55 and all its functionality. Obviously, as mentioned, some of these tests were not going to work in terms of like the Nespresso and things because the power requirements are just too high. There are other more powerful inverter versions of the Bluettis available, so if you're looking for something that requires a bit more oomph, check some of those out. We might have the opportunity to review some of those in the future if this video goes down well with you guys and Bluetti are happy with it. But I'm really impressed with how well the EB55 has worked. Again, not biased, this isn't sponsored and I have both of them. I do think this is a better buy, even though I think it's about 10 or 20 pounds more, not much in it compared to the Jackery Explorer 500, just because of the fact that you have a few more options of how it works. You've got dual AC outputs as opposed to one. I love the fact that you have the ability to have to plug a 3-pin socket in and not have to kind of have it lift up on a cup or something because it's all wedged. I love the fact that you have the USB-C on there as well. And I'm really impressed, especially with the power tools, how it really does manage the surging really well. The only other thing that I haven't ever seen change, it always says Eco in the top hand corner of here. Never seen it change so different. I thought if it was under a bit of stress it might go into a non-eco mode because you put it under lots of power. Don't remember seeing that. I think if I had one criticism of this device, and I mentioned it earlier on in the review, is I don't really like the fact that there is not a clear delineation of what percentage is left in here. You know, right now it's saying it's got 60%, but I don't know, is it 60% or is it 41%? I have no idea. And again, when you're getting down to the last 20%, you don't know if you're at 20% or 1% and you're just about to run out. So it would be nice, instead of having a nice kind of battery storage looking display, I'd much prefer if it told you the exact percentage that you have, and that's one of the advantages that the Jackery has, at least in my opinion. But everything else, I think this is better. Obviously, it can take 200 watt solar panel as well. That's one thing I will just closingly mention. The reason I didn't test or show you testing the Solar Saga 100 watt solar panel I have is I did try it in here, but I think the Solar Saga DC adapter has a very small male end to it, or actually no, it's a withdrawn male end, and so when you plug it in, even though it's the same physical size, the connector does not touch the middle part there, which means I couldn't test it on this. That's an issue with the Jackery, not the Bluetti. Well, not so much an issue, just different things work with different devices. So that's it. I hope this video has been helpful. Consider using the links down below if you want to buy one. I do recommend this if you're looking for something that's going to work in a camper, days down the beach or whatever. Very versatile, and especially if you pair it with a solar panel, I think you're going to have no issues. Endless power, that's what we've used in the past when we go camping. Solar panel and a battery storage, and even with the poor weather in the UK, it's enough to keep things topped up, get your phone charged, use laptops, charge iPads, etc. without any issues. So thank you very much for watching. Again, please leave a like and a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing for other similar videos. There's a plethora of stuff on the Spectrum Geeks channel. But that's it. Until the next video, take care of yourself and goodbye for now.